Hello, I'm Graham Fitch and this is my September practice clinic. We do this once a month where Online Academy subscribers email us with problems, questions, difficulties they're having with specific pieces, or it could be a general question, and then I do my best here to look at the examples and see if I can come up with some help. So the first question we had is actually a general question, and a number of people have written in with this particular point, which is how to make the left hand softer than the right hand. I'm assuming this is in places where the left hand has the accompanimental material, such as Alberti basses and that sort of thing. There are lots of things that we can do case by case and specific pieces, but I can give you a couple of general things. What we really need to be able to do in piano playing is to do something different in the one hand from the other. And when we're starting out on our piano journey, beginners will find that difficult to do because the left hand and the right hand want to do the same sorts of things. So if I'm playing staccato in one hand and I have to play legato in the other, something in the brain balks at that. It doesn't like that. So playing softly is just another example. Playing one hand at a different dynamic level is just another example of independence between the hands. So we can develop the independence within the hand, between the hands I should say, not within the hand, that's a completely separate thing, but and the next stage of development, but between the hands. So let me just take a very simple exercise, and this is where exercises can come in very useful because the material of the exercise is a no-brainer. I don't have to worry about it. It's just the whole tone scale from E to C, so that the middle fingers, the long fingers are going on the black keys. Now, if your hand is small, you might want to put a B on the top instead of the C. So it could be this. But for my hand, that is preferable. And you'll notice that we get to use this five-finger position for a variety of different activities. You'll notice that when I play five-finger positions, I don't lock my hand into the position. I'm mobile through the five fingers. Let me show you what it looks like. Can you see the mobility? Just in the wrist here. And of course the arm moves as well, but I'm not generating the movement from the arm. It's coming from the wrist. Just a small lateral adjustment that helps us to keep lined up behind the playing finger. So let's use this exercise as a vehicle for developing difference between the two hands. Let's just start off with touch, legato, staccato. I'm going to play once legato, and then without stopping, now let me mix and match, and now let me switch. See what I did there? You could go up and down a few times before switching to the next activity, but the magic happens when you don't stop. So at the changeover point, there's a little switch that goes like this in my brain that enables me to flip the activity from one to the other. That's what we want to develop. It's easier if we stop and think, okay, now my hand's going to do this and this. Easier if you can do that, but let's see if we can avoid that. Let me show you again. Up, legato, change, change, change. Now the fun starts when I introduce slurs into that mix. So let me just do a bunch of slurred pairs. Now what I'm going to do now is to combine slurring with legato and slurring with staccato. So an exercise might look like this. You can do it in C major hand position if you want, but this is just a better shape for the hand. So let me start off legato. Now staccato. Now slurs. Now just to save a little time here, because I think you've got the idea, let me mix up slurs with legato. Come to a staccato. Now I'm going to mix up slurs. exercise is very, very good for developing independence between the hands. Now let's apply a couple of other ideas. Well, the obvious example springs to mind is the Mozart C major sonata, where we probably want the left hand a little lighter than the right. Everybody knows that. So maybe my right hand is mezzo forte and my left hand is mezzo piano, or maybe my right hand is mezzo piano and the left hand piano, or even pianissimo, if you want to define it in that way. So let's say I can't really do that. My left hand wants to play as loudly as my right hand. The irony is that on a period piano from the time of Mozart, you'd play both hands the same, but on our modern instrument, we've got much more resonance around here, and you generally need to tame that a little bit. So I'm going to show you now something that you could use that would be extremely helpful, and it's miming. So what I'm doing is I'm playing my left hand on the top of the keys. You won't hear anything, maybe a little bit of action noise, if you've got a particularly acute hearing, because I'm sending the keys down a certain way, but I'm just not allowing the note to speak. So that's fairly straightforward to do that when I play the left hand by itself, but when I add my right hand, I'm aiming now to sing my right hand out fully, but mime my left. And so on. So then I develop the skills after a little bit of perhaps adding a little sound in my left hand. Maybe I'll allow, I don't know, 15, 20% of the notes to sound every now and again. And so on. And then maybe now I allow myself to play 75% of the notes. It doesn't matter where, but I'm going to get roughly 75, 80% of the notes sounding. With some not sounding. Now I think I've got an understanding of what I need to do to keep that light. Let me see if I can go for all the notes. I think there you'd certainly be able to pick up that I was really able to control my left hand so that it were lighter than my right hand. So you can also do that activity with the 5-finger exercise. Try this out. Play your 5 fingers. Now mime one hand. Mime the other hand. See how a very simple pattern of notes, such as that 5-finger whole tone exercise, can be used for a variety of different skill building ideas. So that's the first quote. I hope that gives you some concrete things that you can do in your practice. The next question comes from Alice, who's looking at the Bach Invention No. 1, the C major invention from the 2-part inventions, and she's asking about the relationship between the left hand and the right hand, and how to make each motif sing out. How to practice it. Do I play both hands and try and hear the hand that has the motifs? Does this apply to the entire piece? Well, okay. We've got to look at the score first, and as soon as we look at the score, we'll discover that the left hand and the right hand are playing the same material. So we start off with a theme, which is answered by the left hand. So my ear would be zigzagging at the beginning between the left hand and the right hand, but I don't have to play one hand any stronger or any softer than the other, because the material itself will help me to balance it out a little bit. And the left hand is as important as the right hand everywhere. Do you see how this is? There's no tune and accompaniment. It's not a feature of the style here. We've got 2 independent lines that come together and make beautiful music. If you think of a violin and a cello. It may be in, let's say, when you get to bar 3, that you won't want quite as much of the left hand. But to all intents and purposes, my hands are equal there, equal in profile. So how do we make sense of this music? Well, let's look at the structure of the music, because Bach wrote this not just as an exercise in playing the keyboard, but as an exercise in composition. And from that point of view, it's a wonderful opportunity when you're studying this piece to understand the structures that the music is made of. Let's look at the subject itself, the theme. And then a tail. And then he repeats that on the dominant. Not in the dominant key, but on the dominant note. So from C at the beginning to G. The left hand answers this. And again here. And then, what do we find in the left hand? 4 notes that go up, and then there's a bit of a jump. 4 notes that go up, and then a bit of a jump, the jump being an interval of the 6th. And that is extended by a couple of notes, isn't it, before we have the subject, this time in the dominant key. In the key of G major with an end. That takes us actually into the key of G major. There's a modulation there. Now, remember I was talking about the 4 notes that ascend in bar 3? That pattern is derived from the subject. So if we look at the initial subject, we've got 4 notes that go up, step by step. And then we've got 2 jumps, downward jumps of the 3rd. And then a big jump of a 5th. So I'm interested in the intervals. And then lift the hand. And then again. So if I play now hands together, both hands equal in dynamic, you should be satisfied with the way this sounds. I want to point out one other thing. Go back to bar 3 for a moment. We notice that the motif starts on the 2nd note of the bar, the 2nd semiquaver 16th note. How do I know that? Well, the 1st note of the bar belongs to the end of the last motif. That's because Bach sets it up that way from the very beginning, starting with a semiquaver rest. So bar 3. Now, I'm fascinated by what he's done there compositionally. So if we look at it, at the beginning, he went up 4 notes, step by step. Then he skipped down. In the bar 3, he does the inverted form of that. So he goes down 4 notes, and then up 3. And he so likes that idea that he thinks, I'll do that again. I still like it, I'm going to do it again. And again. Talk about recycling. And the left hand is taking the 4 notes that go up from the original idea and putting that against this inversion of the subject, which is why I would articulate my left hand with a little gap, which keeps everything clear. So I've got a choice when I play Baroque music. Do I play the staccatos connected? Do I play them, what do I play staccato? What do I play connected? What do I play disconnected? It's really up to me, but the general principle is when you've got a big interval, let's say the interval of the 6, I'm looking at bar 5, we would separate big intervals and join together steps. So if ever you're stuck as to how to articulate Baroque music, and you're looking at, say, a particular note value, eighth notes, quavers, you could go with that as a basic principle. If the music is moving in steps, join it. If it's moving in skips or big intervals, disconnect. So I think we haven't really got time to go through the whole of this invention, but having arrived in G major, we get the left hand now starts the story. Isn't that beautifully symmetrical? So what he gave to the right hand at the beginning, answered by the left hand, he then reverses so that the left hand has it and the right hand answers in the key of G major. Then we get a lovely modulation to A minor, which is our relative minor in bar 14-15. Then we have dialogue. And now our subject material again. In sequence being the pattern of notes is repeated, in this instance higher, this is why this is an ascending sequence. This is bar 19, and then. Now for me that's a crescendo, so this gives me an idea that perhaps an ascending sequence I could climb up a little bit. So you'll find that crescendos and diminuendos are completely natural to all music, to all expressive music making. So by all means use crescendos, diminuendos. You certainly don't need any pedal here, obviously, so it's to be done without the pedal. There's nothing wrong with practicing this hand separately for quite a bit, because we want to be able to hear how the left hand sounds by itself. Independently of the right hand, but when we play together, aim for the hands to be more or less the same dynamic level. So Katerina now is starting to learn Schubert's Sonata D960, that's the great B-flat sonata. My question relates to how I should go about the legato in the first theme of the first movement. Should I do as much legato playing as possible, using 4s and 5s or 5s to 4s, in other words, that I'll show you in a second. Changes on the higher note to keep the melody legato, or should I let go and allow the pedal to take care of that? Good question, and I'll look at that. Some passages, if performed as written, can be a little challenging, especially in the right hand, fourth beats in the quavers, though the tempo is relatively slow. Also, if you could offer some advice on how to perform the left hand pianissimo trill, I'd be very grateful. Thank you. Yes, that trill is a challenge because it's way down in the most resonant part of our instrument and it's got to be played pianissimo. So, what we get at the beginning is a molto moderato indication, pianissimo, and we've got the melody line in octaves. And if I just play the octaves. Single note, but everything else. You'll notice there that my thumb, I decided that my thumb wasn't going to be super soft. I don't want a Chopin nocturne type of sound. Let me show you. This would be a wrong sound. What I've done there is I've played my top right hand with great projection and profile, and everything underneath really, really soft. So we don't want quite so much top, and we want more of what's going on underneath. Now in the right hand we have a middle note, a harmonic note, in the middle between the octaves. So in terms of fingering there, I would start, as I suppose millions of other people would, with a 5 and a 3. Now there's no need to worry about finger legato here because I'm going to be pedaling each crotchet, each quarter note. Change, 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 change. We've got to be careful of the pedal in bar 2 because of the E natural there. So there's no need to contort ourselves with a physical legato there when the pedal is doing the job. So if I removed my pedal, just to show you how long I'm holding on for, let me do that. That's what it would feel like in my hand without the pedal. I want a little bit of shadow from the left hand as well. Can you hear there? You've got counterpoint going on in the top left hand. The bass is grounding us. It's known as a tonic pedal. So if I put that together, I'm now going to go for a better sound, a more homogenized from the point of view of more chamber music sound. I want to be able to hear the octave between the pinky and the thumb in the right hand, and I want the thumb to be substantial enough to provide shadow for the line. I also want to make sure I can hear my thematic line going on down there in the tenor. And I'm going to let my pedal take care of the legatos. Now in bar 2, you've got two choices. You can either re-pedal on the F, change, or you can delay the pedal, have no pedal here, and then put it down just after you've played the thumb F. The point of that is we don't want this. That's unacceptable. That's better. Now, I think this could be one of the spots that you're talking about, the right hand quavers being problematic. Now, in this case, if your fourth finger is able to play the B flat without any kind of adjustment in the position, any twisting in your wrist, as I'm able to, then by all means use it, because it's actually more convenient than using 5, 5, 5. But let's say you can't manage it, it's perfectly okay to do 5, 5. And then again you'd have to re-pedal, change, change, change. Anyway, you'd have to do that. Similarly for the last quavers here. What I do there is 5, 3, and then 5, 3 again on the white notes. So one final thing for those quavers, it could be the problem you're having is because you're playing the white keys. I'm looking at the first group, bar 2, the white keys too far out on the edge of the keyboard, and then you're having to make a big adjustment inwards. If you place the hand so that the C is in the black key area, then the adjustment you're going to need to make to get from there to here is already reduced significantly. But not this. You see, that's what's going to make you uncomfortable there. I could go on. There's a similar kind of idea, isn't it, throughout the next little phrase. But let's get to the trill. So this trill is very spooky. Yeah? It's a distant rumbling. It's ominous. It's threatening. You should need to look and see what happens to that trill later when it comes back. It's turned into something a little bit more monstrous. But at the beginning, very veiled, very threatening. Now, there's a few things to say about the trill. In this register of the instrument, you don't need to play the trill fast. Because if I were to play it fast, it would immediately be too loud and overkill. So play it slowly. Now there's another skill, a technical skill that we have to develop as pianists quite early on, and that is to be able to play in the key. What do I mean by in the key? Okay, if I release my finger all the way up to the top of the key in each note of that trill, I'm going to get something that's way too loud and way too oppressive. So what I have to do is to release the finger only halfway up between each repetition. I'm going to do it in a different octave so you can hear it better. Then I'll go down there. So rather than this, I'm playing playing inside the key. Do you see? Now, one thing you can do to help you find that spot is to just block with the other hand the keys from coming all the way up. Play normally in the left hand, and then remove your right hand and see if you can stay in that spot. You see what I've got there? See, that sounds very good, doesn't it? Although I say so myself, very fast trill. I'm not coming all the way up to the top, I'm just straddling that point. It feels like being on a seesaw. You know, I'm not coming all the way up, I'm not going all the way down to the bottom, just... Now if I take that down here, little pedal maybe. And I'm also wanting to take a little bit of time over the termination. I want to be able to spell out each note there. I want them to hear every note. One final thing for that trill, and indeed for any trill, is if you have a little mobility on the keys. You see what I'm doing there? I'm not staying in one place and moving my fingers up and down like this. I'm wanting to make a little bit more involvement from my arm. So I walk up and then back down again. And now if I minimize that movement, I'm just aware of a little bit of mobility there, a little bit of mobility here, which enables me to free up the trill and to have it feel really comfortable in my body. So Angela would like a bit of advice on the pedalling for the piece At the Smithy by Maikapar, which I believe is set for grade 4 this session of the ABRSM. And the confusion that Angela is expressing, that I'm sure is shared by lots of other people, the IMSLP and ABRSM editions have different pedal markings. Indeed they do. I love questions like this because it just goes to show that there's no such thing, even if it's from the composer themselves, of the definitive pedaling. And we have to remember that Debussy, Rachmaninoff, hardly wrote any pedal markings because it's so open to confusion and disagreement. So Debussy in particular indicated on the stave how he might want the pedal to be held down. You'll see things like slurs or ties that don't lead anywhere. It just says keep the pedal down. Generous long pedals. So we've got this kind of bright and breezy idea at the beginning. And then a different idea. Two contrasting ideas. You can hear the blacksmith knocking on the anvil right there at the beginning. And the composer has marked that martellato, hammered. So personally, I would not pedal that idea. But here, yes, to help to bring out that contrast. Now, some of you might notice, well, hang on a minute, that's all very well, but there are staccato dots over the dotted crotchets, dotted quarters in this chord stream. Surely that means I must make a separation. Well, let's try a little separation. I don't think it works there, does it? In fact, yes, we've got staccato dots there as well. It doesn't mean that. It means release the key, catch the sound in the pedal, and the effect of that is that it gives me quite an explosive t syllable at the beginning of each chord. So you can quite clearly hear pa, pa, or ta, ta. If I were to play without the staccato, we get a much smoother sense of phrase. So, with the staccato, without the staccato, different sound, but the pedaling is the same. So the ABRSM edition, I believe, has pedal. For beginning. What do you think? I suppose if your blacksmith were operating in a cavernous workshop, the pedalled version would be what he'd be hearing. Were he outside in the open air doing his blacksmithing, maybe we wouldn't get that kind of resonance. So really, the choice of resonance is up to you, but I agree that it's confusing when we see pedal marks that vary from one edition to the other. I think what we can take from that is that there's not always 100% certainty that the pedal marks are as accurate as the notes on the page, on the stave, are intended to be. So do what you want. And I hope that has given you a few things to think about and consider. Do submit your questions for the next practice clinic, and I will get to them, and look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you for watching.